Saudi Arabia, a land of extremes from the empty quarter's endless sands to the Red Sea's vibrant coral reefs, has a rich history shaped by its diverse landscapes and resilient people. Saudi Arabia's Red Sea and Arabian Gulf coasts have long been gateways for trade and cultural exchange, shaping the nation's destiny and connecting it to the wider world. From ancient pearl diving to modern oil wealth, these coasts have driven economic and social transformation. Before Saudi Arabia's formation, the Arabian Peninsula was a mosaic of ancient civilizations and tribal societies, with kingdoms like Saba and Himyar thriving on trade. The Bedouin tribes, with their nomadic lifestyle and strong traditions, dominated much of the land. In the 7th century, Islam emerged in Mecca, transforming the Arabian Peninsula with its message of monotheism, equality, and social justice. The Prophet Muhammad's teachings united the tribes, creating a new religious and political order. After Muhammad's death, the caliphate expanded rapidly, spreading Islam and fostering a golden age of intellectual and cultural exchange. Cities like Baghdad and Cordoba became centers of learning and innovation, leaving a lasting legacy. The Arabian Peninsula saw the rise and fall of empires, from the Mongols to the Ottomans, yet remained a land of faith and tradition. Mecca and Medina continued to draw pilgrims, maintaining the region's spiritual significance. Mecca and Medina, as the spiritual heart of Islam, attracted pilgrims and scholars, preserving and transmitting Islamic knowledge and traditions. The annual Hajj pilgrimage connected the Arabian Peninsula to the wider Muslim world. The Arabian Peninsula's strategic location made it a target for empires like the Ottomans and Portuguese, who sought control over vital trade routes. This competition brought new technologies and ideas, influencing the region's development. In the 18th century, Muhammad ibn Abd al-Wahhab and Muhammad bin Saud founded the first Saudi state, driven by a vision of religious and political reform. Their alliance united the tribes of Najd, challenging Ottoman authority and reshaping the region. The House of Saud, with its Wahhabi ideology, rapidly expanded its influence, establishing a new political and religious order in Central Arabia. Their rise marked a turning point, laying the foundations for the modern Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Under the leadership of the House of Saud, the Wahhabi movement expanded throughout the Arabian Peninsula, aiming to purify Islamic practice and establish a society governed by strict Islamic law. By the early 19th century, the first Saudi state had grown into a formidable empire, controlling Mecca and Medina, challenging the Ottoman Empire's authority. The capture of these cities in 1803 sent shockwaves through the Muslim world. These cities held immense symbolic and religious significance. The Saudis' control raised questions about their legitimacy. The Ottomans, wary of the Saudis' power, could not ignore this challenge. The first Saudi state, under Imam Saud ibn Abd al-Aziz, reached its zenith during this period. Imam Saud proved to be a skilled military commander, consolidating his control over the territories. He established a centralized administration based on Islamic principles. The expansion faced challenges from internal rivalries and external enemies. However, their faith and military prowess enabled them to maintain power. The Ottoman Empire, facing a growing number of challenges within its vast domain, could no longer tolerate the existence of the first Saudi state, which it viewed as a threat to its authority and a destabilizing force in the region. In 1811, the Ottoman Sultan Mahmud II dispatched his powerful viceroy in Egypt, Muhammad Ali Pasha, to crush the Saudis and restore Ottoman control over the Arabian Peninsula. Muhammad Ali Pasha, a shrewd strategist and a ruthless military commander, launched a systematic campaign against the Saudis, utilizing a combination of modern military tactics and alliances with local tribes who had grown weary of Saudi rule. His forces, equipped with superior weaponry and aided by European advisors, gradually pushed back the Saudis, retaking lost territories and inflicting heavy casualties. The turning point in the war came in 1818 with the fall of Diriyah, the Saudi capital, after a protracted siege. The Ottomans, determined to make an example of the Saudis and prevent their resurgence, razed Diriyah to the ground, destroying its fortifications, mosques, and libraries. Imam Abdullah bin Saud, the Saudi leader, was captured and sent to Constantinople, where he was executed. The destruction of Diriyah marked the end of the first Saudi state. The Ottomans, having reasserted their authority over the Arabian Peninsula, sought to prevent the resurgence of Wahhabism by installing their own governors and garrisons in key cities. However, the seeds of Saudi resistance had been sown, and the memory of their brief but impactful reign would continue to inspire future generations. The collapse of the first Saudi state did not extinguish the flames of Wahhabism. In 1824, Turki bin Abdullah established a second Saudi state in Riyadh. Turkey rallied the tribes of Najd, retaking Riyadh and challenging Ottoman authority. The second Saudi state showed resilience despite internal and external pressures. It endured for over 6 decades, preserving the Saudi dynasty's lineage and ambition. As the 19th century ended, the Arabian Peninsula was on the brink of transformation, leading to the rise of a unified Saudi state. In 1902, Abdul Aziz bin Abdul Rahman Al Saud, later known as Ibn Saud, began his quest to unify the Arabian Peninsula. His charisma and military skill were key to his success. Ibn Saud forged crucial tribal alliances to expand his influence. His early victories showcased his military prowess. In 1902, he captured Riyadh, marking a turning point. This victory laid the foundation for modern Saudi Arabia. The seeds of modern Saudi Arabia had been sown. Abdul Aziz, known to the world as Ibn Saud, cut a striking figure. Tall and imposing, his piercing gaze conveyed both authority and charisma. He was a skilled warrior, a shrewd diplomat, and a devout Muslim, a true leader for his time. He understood the complexities of tribal politics, the importance of loyalty, and the power of unity in a land often fragmented by rivalries. His ambition was nothing less than to unify the Arabian Peninsula under the banner of the House of Saud. It was a daunting task. The peninsula was a patchwork of rival tribes, each with its own history and allegiances. But Ibn Saud, armed with unwavering faith, a strong sense of destiny, and a gift for forging alliances, embarked on his mission. He traversed the vast deserts, meeting with tribal leaders, negotiating treaties, and consolidating his power. He understood that true unity went beyond military victories. It required understanding, respect, and a shared vision for the future. His message resonated with many who were weary of conflict and longed for stability. Step by step, victory by victory, Ibn Saud's influence grew. He brought together once warring tribes under his banner, creating a sense of shared identity and purpose. He established a system of governance based on Islamic law, ensuring justice and order. The dream of a unified Saudi Arabia, which had seemed impossible for so long, was slowly becoming a reality. The year 1932 marked a pivotal moment in the history of the Arabian Peninsula. Abdul Aziz bin Abdul Rahman Al Saud declared the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. This proclamation unified disparate tribes under the House of Saud. The unification was a vision rooted in history, faith, and ambition. Ibn Saud's belief in his destiny and strategic use of diplomacy and military power enabled him to overcome obstacles. The newly established kingdom faced numerous challenges. Ibn Saud embarked on nation-building, modernizing the kingdom while preserving its Islamic heritage. He established governance, invested in education, healthcare, and infrastructure. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, under its founding monarch's leadership, took its place on the world stage. As Ibn Saud consolidated his power, a momentous discovery would forever alter Saudi Arabia's destiny. In 1938, American geologists struck oil at Dammam. This discovery unleashed economic and social transformation. Oil revenues fueled modernization, transforming the kingdom. The traditional nomadic way of life gave way to urbanization. New industries emerged, attracting foreign workers. The discovery of oil reshaped Saudi society and its global role. World War II cast a long shadow over the Middle East, disrupting trade routes and testing alliances. Saudi Arabia, though neutral, was drawn into the conflict due to its strategic oil reserves. Ibn Saud navigated this landscape with pragmatism, forging new partnerships. A significant meeting between Ibn Saud and President Roosevelt in 1945 marked the start of a special relationship. This meeting aboard the USS Quincy laid the foundation for a strategic partnership. Roosevelt recognized Saudi Arabia's strategic importance and sought a personal rapport. Ibn Saud saw the U.S. as an ally in modernizing his kingdom. The brief meeting laid the foundation for a lasting partnership. The U.S. provided aid to secure oil access and counter Soviet influence. Saudi oil became crucial for the post-war global economy. The relationship between the king and the president shaped the Middle East and global energy market. The influx of oil wealth presented significant challenges for Saudi Arabia. Ibn Saud sought to balance economic development with preserving Islamic values and cultural heritage. Transforming a rural society into a modern nation-state was daunting. Infrastructure and skilled labor were lacking. The kingdom embarked on ambitious infrastructure development. Foreign workers filled the skills gap. The social impact was profound. Traditional ways of life were disrupted. New social classes emerged. The government invested heavily in education. Rapid modernization faced criticism. Some feared Western influences would erode traditional values. Balancing modernization with cultural identity was delicate. The kingdom was now connected to the global economy. Following Ibn Saud's death in 1953, his son Saud ascended to the throne. King Saud continued his father's legacy of modernization, investing heavily in infrastructure, education, and social programs. However, his reign faced growing tensions and financial mismanagement. In 1964, King Saud was deposed and replaced by his half-brother Faisal. King Faisal ushered in an era of stability and economic growth. The discovery of oil in Saudi Arabia's eastern deserts promised unimaginable wealth and power. Saudi Arabia was thrust onto the world stage. Black gold flowed, transforming the nation's destiny. Sleepy villages became bustling cities. The kingdom became a linchpin of the global economy. Economic might translated into political clout. Oil wealth brought prosperity and challenges. Balancing tradition and modernity was key. Saudi Arabia's voice was now amplified. The kingdom asserted itself in global affairs. The 1973 embargo showed Saudi Arabia's leverage. Navigating the turbulent waters of the late 20th century required a steady hand, and the Al Saud dynasty, despite internal rivalries and external pressures, proved remarkably adept at maintaining stability. King Khalid, succeeding Faisal in 1975, continued his predecessor's policies, focusing on economic development, social progress, and strengthening the kingdom's regional and international standing. The Al Saud family, a vast and complex clan, operated like a delicate balancing act. Power was shared, albeit unequally, among the many sons and grandsons of Ibn Saud. Consensus, often reached behind closed doors, was the preferred mode of governance. While this system ensured a degree of stability, it also bred resentment among those who felt excluded from the levers of power. The kingdom, despite its newfound wealth, remained deeply conservative, its laws and social norms rooted in a strict interpretation of Islamic law. Public expressions of dissent were met with swift and often harsh repression. Religious police patrolled the streets, enforcing prayer times and dress codes. Women, while making some gains in education and employment, remained largely excluded from public life. Balancing the demands of a rapidly modernizing society with the strictures of religious conservatism was a tightrope walk. The Al Saud, acutely aware of the potential for unrest, sought to appease both conservative elements within society and those who yearned for greater openness and reform. It was a delicate balancing act, one that became increasingly difficult to maintain as the 20th century drew to a close. The oil boom, while a boon for the Saudi economy, created a paradox of plenty. On the one hand, the kingdom enjoyed unprecedented wealth, its coffers overflowing with petrodollars. On the other hand, this wealth created a culture of dependency, stifling innovation and entrepreneurship. The private sector remained underdeveloped, reliant on government contracts and subsidies. Saudi Arabia, despite its vast oil wealth, faced many of the same challenges as other developing nations: poverty, unemployment, and income inequality. The gap between the haves and the have-nots widened, fueling resentment and social unrest. The kingdom's reliance on a largely unskilled foreign workforce created its own set of problems, including cultural clashes and pressure on infrastructure. The education system, despite significant investment, struggled to keep pace with the demands of a modern economy. Graduates often lacked the skills and knowledge required by the private sector, leading to high rates of unemployment, particularly among young people. This demographic bulge, with its unmet expectations, posed a potential threat to social stability. The kingdom, recognizing the need to diversify its economy and reduce its dependence on oil, embarked on a series of ambitious development plans. These plans, however, often faltered due to bureaucratic inertia, corruption, and a lack of political will to implement meaningful reforms. The paradox of plenty persisted, with the kingdom seemingly unable to break free from its reliance on oil and create a more sustainable and equitable economic model. The dawn of the 21st century brought with it a new set of challenges for Saudi Arabia. The 9/11 terrorist attacks, carried out by a group of extremists led by Osama bin Laden, a Saudi national, sent shockwaves through the kingdom and its relationship with the United States. The attacks exposed the dark underbelly of Wahhabism, the austere and intolerant interpretation of Islam that had long been nurtured in the kingdom. The Saudi government, caught off guard by the attacks and facing international pressure to address the issue of extremism, condemned the attacks and pledged to cooperate with the United States in its war on terror. However, the kingdom also found itself grappling with the uncomfortable reality that its own citizens had played a central role in these horrific acts. The rise of social media and the internet, while empowering citizens in many ways, also posed a challenge to the Saudi government's tight grip on information and public discourse. Young Saudis, increasingly exposed to the outside world and its diverse cultures and ideas, began to question the status quo, demanding greater freedoms and opportunities. The Arab Spring uprisings that swept through the region in 2011, toppling long-standing dictatorships and igniting demands for democracy and human rights, sent tremors of anxiety through the Saudi ruling elite. The kingdom, fearful of contagion, responded with a mix of repression and concessions, tightening its grip on dissent while introducing limited reforms aimed at appeasing those who yearned for change. In 2015, King Salman ascended the throne, marking a new era for Saudi Arabia. He appointed his son, Mohammed bin Salman, as deputy crown prince, initiating sweeping reforms. MBS launched Vision 2030 to diversify the economy and reduce oil dependence. The plan includes tourism, technology, and renewable energy investments. Social reforms like lifting the ban on women driving were introduced. Concerts and cultural events were promoted. These changes faced resistance from conservatives. MBS's vision also had an authoritarian streak. Dissent was not tolerated. Critics faced detention and intimidation. The kingdom's human rights record drew international condemnation. Saudi Arabia stands at a crossroads under MBS's leadership. Vision 2030 promises a future beyond oil wealth. The path ahead is fraught with challenges. Balancing modernization with stability will define Saudi Arabia's journey. Saudi Arabia, once content with its role as the custodian of Islam's holiest sites and a reliable energy supplier, found itself stepping onto the world stage in a more assertive manner. The kingdom, under MBS's direction, adopted a more muscular foreign policy, projecting its influence beyond its borders and engaging in regional power plays. The intervention in Yemen, launched in 2015, was intended as a swift operation to counter the Iranian-backed Houthi rebels and restore the internationally recognized government. However, the conflict morphed into a protracted and bloody quagmire, drawing international condemnation for its humanitarian cost and strategic missteps. The war in Yemen showcased the limits of Saudi military power and the complexities of navigating the region's intricate web of alliances and rivalries. On the diplomatic front, Saudi Arabia found itself increasingly at odds with its former Western allies, particularly over human rights concerns and its handling of the war in Yemen. The gruesome murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi in the Saudi consulate in Istanbul in 2018 sent shockwaves through the international community and tarnished the kingdom's reputation. MBS, widely believed to have ordered the assassination, faced widespread condemnation, further isolating the kingdom on the world stage. Despite these setbacks, Saudi Arabia remained a key player in global energy markets, its oil production still wielding immense influence. The kingdom, however, recognized the need to diversify its economy and reduce its reliance on oil, particularly as the world transitioned towards renewable energy sources. Vision 2030, with its focus on technology, tourism, and foreign investment, represented a long-term strategy to prepare the kingdom for a post-oil future. Within the kingdom, the sands of social change were shifting, albeit at a pace carefully controlled from above. MBS, recognizing the need to appeal to the aspirations of the kingdom's youthful population, introduced a series of reforms that would have been unthinkable just a few years earlier. The lifting of the ban on women driving, long a symbol of the kingdom's restrictive social norms, was a watershed moment, greeted with jubilation by many Saudi women who had long yearned for the freedom of mobility. Cinemas, once banned, flickered to life, screening Hollywood blockbusters and Bollywood musicals to enthusiastic audiences. Concerts and cultural events, once confined to private gatherings, became increasingly common, injecting a new vibrancy into public life. These social reforms, while welcomed by many, particularly young Saudis eager to embrace a more modern lifestyle, were met with resistance from conservative elements within society. The religious police, once a powerful force enforcing strict moral codes, found their authority curtailed. The pace of change, while rapid by Saudi standards, remained carefully controlled, with the government wary of alienating those who clung to traditional values. The economic reforms, while ambitious, faced their own set of challenges. Diversifying the economy away from oil proved to be a daunting task, with the private sector slow to respond to the government's calls for investment and job creation. Unemployment, particularly among young Saudis, remained stubbornly high. fueling resentment and frustration. The kingdom, despite its vast wealth, faced many of the same economic challenges as other developing nations, struggling to create a more inclusive and sustainable economic model. The Saudi state under MBS's leadership found itself walking a tightrope, seeking to balance the demands of modernization with the preservation of its Islamic identity and the power of the Al Saud dynasty. It was a delicate balancing act, one that required a deft touch and a willingness to navigate the complexities of a rapidly changing society. MBS, despite his reformist zeal, remained a staunch defender of the Saudi monarchy and its absolute authority. Dissent, even when expressed peacefully, was not tolerated. Critics, both within the kingdom and abroad, were silenced, often through arbitrary detention, enforced disappearances, and travel bans. The kingdom's human rights record, already abysmal, deteriorated further under his rule. The crackdown on dissent, while effective in stifling criticism, came at a cost. It created an atmosphere of fear and self-censorship, stifling creativity and innovation. The kingdom, despite its efforts to project an image of openness and reform, remained a deeply authoritarian state. Its citizens denied basic freedoms of expression, assembly, and association. The balancing act between tradition and transformation, between the allure of modernity and the weight of history, was a defining feature of Saudi Arabia in the 21st century. The kingdom, caught between its past and its aspirations for the future, found itself at a crossroads, its destiny uncertain, its path forward fraught with both promise and peril. The story of Saudi Arabia is a testament to the enduring power of faith, the transformative impact of energy resources, and the complex interplay of tradition and modernity. From its humble beginnings in the deserts of Najd to its emergence as a global power, the kingdom has undergone a remarkable transformation. The future of Saudi Arabia, like the shifting sands of its vast deserts, remains unwritten. The kingdom faces a multitude of challenges, from economic diversification to social cohesion. How it navigates these challenges will determine its place in the 21st century and beyond. Saudi Arabia's story is a living narrative, blending ancient traditions with modern ambitions. The kingdom, shaped by tribal rivalries and oil wealth, stands as a testament to ambition and resilience. Ibn Saud's vision of a unified Arabia continues to influence the nation's political DNA. The discovery of oil transformed the kingdom, bringing wealth and modernization. Yet this wealth also brought challenges, including dependency and social inequalities. The rise of social media and youthful aspirations are driving change. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's reforms aim to modernize the economy and loosen social restrictions. Saudi Arabia is a land of stark contrasts, where ancient traditions coexist, often uneasily, with the trappings of modernity. Gleaming skyscrapers pierce the sky, casting long shadows over mud-brick villages where time seems to have stood still. Air-conditioned shopping malls, brimming with designer boutiques and international brands, stand in sharp contrast to bustling souks where vendors hawk spices, perfumes, and traditional handicrafts. The allure of the West, with its promise of individual freedoms, consumerism, and cultural expression, has seeped into Saudi society, particularly among the younger generation. Social media platforms like Twitter and Instagram have become virtual town squares, where young Saudis share their dreams, aspirations, and frustrations, often challenging the norms and restrictions imposed by their elders. Yet beneath the veneer of modernity, the weight of tradition remains palpable. Religious conservatism, deeply embedded in the kingdom's social fabric, continues to exert a powerful influence. The Committee for the Promotion of Virtue and the Prevention of Vice, though its powers curtailed in recent years, still patrols public spaces, ensuring that citizens adhere to strict moral codes. Women, while making strides in education and the workplace, still face discrimination and require the permission of a male guardian for many aspects of their lives. The kingdom's unique blend of tradition and modernity, often described as a clash of civilizations playing out in real time, creates both opportunities and challenges. Balancing the aspirations of a rapidly evolving society with the strictures of religious dogma and the preservation of the Al Saud's grip on power will be a delicate balancing act for generations to come. Saudi Arabia, at this juncture in its history, finds itself at a crossroads, facing internal and external pressures that will shape its destiny. Vision 2030 aims to diversify the economy and reduce oil dependence. The social contract is strained by globalization and rising expectations. Balancing demands for freedoms with stability requires deft maneuvering. On the international stage, Saudi Arabia faces regional rivalries and shifting alliances. Its intervention in Yemen has become a humanitarian catastrophe. The weight of history, that heavy cloak woven from the threads of ancient empires, religious fervor, tribal allegiances, and the legacy of oil, continues to shape Saudi Arabia's present and influence its future trajectory. The kingdom's unique history, both a source of pride and a burden, informs its worldview, its foreign policy choices, and its internal dynamics. The birthplace of Islam, Saudi Arabia views itself as a custodian of the faith, a role that carries immense symbolic weight and influences its interactions with the wider Muslim world. The annual Hajj pilgrimage, drawing millions of Muslims from across the globe to Mecca, reinforces the kingdom's spiritual significance and its position as a leader within the Islamic community. The discovery of oil, while a transformative event that catapulted the kingdom onto the world stage, also created a legacy of dependency and a culture of entitlement that has proven difficult to shake off. The petrodollars flowing freely for decades fueled a sense of exceptionalism, a belief that the kingdom's vast wealth insulated it from the political and economic realities facing other nations. The Al Saud dynasty, its legitimacy intertwined with the tenets of Islam and the legacy of Ibn Saud, the desert unifier, faces the challenge of adapting to a rapidly changing world while preserving its grip on power. Balancing the demands for greater political and social freedoms with the preservation of its authoritarian system of governance will be a defining challenge for the kingdom's rulers in the years to come. Despite the daunting challenges it faces, Saudi Arabia is not without hope. The kingdom, with its vast oil wealth, its strategic location, and its youthful population, possesses the potential to chart a new course, one that embraces a more inclusive and sustainable future. Vision 2030, while ambitious and fraught with implementation challenges, represents a recognition that the status quo is unsustainable. Diversifying the economy, investing in education and technology, and creating a more vibrant and dynamic private sector will be crucial for unlocking the kingdom's potential and creating opportunities for its citizens. Empowering women, long marginalized and denied their full rights, is not only a moral imperative, but also an economic necessity. Unlocking the potential of half its population will unleash a wave of creativity, innovation, and entrepreneurship that will benefit the entire kingdom. Embracing a more tolerant and inclusive interpretation of Islam, one that promotes dialogue, understanding, and respect for diversity, will be essential for countering extremism, fostering social cohesion, and improving the kingdom's image on the world stage. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to our channel for more content. As we gaze beyond the horizon, into the uncertain future that awaits Saudi Arabia, one thing remains clear. The kingdom stands at a pivotal moment in its history. The choices it makes today, both domestically and internationally, will determine its destiny for generations to come. Will it cling to the old ways, the authoritarian grip on power, the reliance on oil, the strict social restrictions, or will it embrace the winds of change, unleash the potential of its people, and forge a new path, one that leads to a more just, prosperous, and inclusive future? The world watches with bated breath, for the story of Saudi Arabia is far from over. It is a story still being written, its pages filled with both promise and uncertainty. Only time will tell what the next chapter holds for this kingdom of deserts, oil, and enduring